Santa skipped us again this year. The words float through Terminal C's pre-dawn stillness like snowflakes through frozen air, so quiet that Dante Moretti almost convinces himself he imagined them. His thumb hovers over the encrypted message that's been waiting for confirmation for the past 20 minutes. A shipment route through Newark that will net his organization $2.7 million by New Year's Eve, assuming he responds within the next 8 minutes. But those 6 words, whispered with the particular resignation of someone too young to understand bitterness but old enough to recognize patterns, make his finger freeze halfway to the screen. She materializes from behind one of the plastic airport chairs like a ghost gaining substance, small enough that the rolling suitcase she's dragging seems comically oversized. Maybe 6 years old, possibly 7, with dark curls escaping from a ponytail that's coming loose and a red winter coat that's seen better seasons. The coat's bright color can't hide the fraying cuffs, or the way the zipper doesn't quite close at the bottom anymore. Dante has spent the last 2 hours in this deliberately empty corner of LaGuardia's Terminal C, choosing this spot precisely because holiday travelers avoid it. Too far from the coffee shops, too close to the construction zone that's been temporarily closed for 3 months. He'd needed isolation to make the kind of decisions that required clear thinking, the kind of calculations where one wrong move meant bodies and federal attention his organization couldn't afford right now. The child shouldn't be here. No one should be here. That's the entire point of this location. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. She stands there studying him with the unnerving directness that children employ before the world teaches them that sustained eye contact with strangers is rude or dangerous. Her eyes are enormous, dark brown and slightly red-rimmed like she's been crying recently but is trying very hard not to anymore. She's clutching something against her chest. A stuffed reindeer that's missing one antler and has seen enough love that its fur has worn thin in patches. "You look sad too," she observes with the blunt honesty of someone who hasn't learned to filter observations through social nicety. Like when my teacher Miss Rosa looks at the calendar and realizes it's almost time to pay rent. Mama makes that same face when she counts money. Dante should tell her to find her parents. Should flag down one of the airport security personnel who patrol even these forgotten corners eventually. Should do literally anything except engage with a lost child while he's sitting here with his phone full of incriminating messages and Marco positioned 30 feet away with concealed carry that would raise every alarm if airport security decided to take interest. Instead, he hears himself ask, "Where's your mama?" The girl's face does something complicated, a flash of worry quickly buried under determined brightness that looks practiced, rehearsed, like she spent considerable time learning to hide her fear to keep adults from panicking. "She went to find someone about our plane. We were supposed to go to Boston to stay with Aunt Marie for Christmas, but the flight got canceled because of the snow. Mama said to wait right here by the windows while she talks to the airline people." She says this while gesturing vaguely toward the terminal's main concourse, easily a 5-minute walk through crowds and security checkpoints. The logistics of how this child ended up this far from where her mother left her raise immediate red flags in Dante's mind, the kind of threat assessment that's become automatic after 15 years of surviving in a business where inattention means death. "How long ago?" Dante keeps his voice level, professional, the tone he uses when extracting information needs to happen without causing panic. The girl's small face scrunches in concentration. "I don't know exactly. I can't read the big clock numbers yet. Just the digital ones on phones. But it was before the really loud airplane landed outside." She points toward the tarmac where a 777 now sits at its gate, and Dante checks his phone's timeline. That flight landed 43 minutes ago. 43 minutes is well past the threshold of waiting patiently into the territory of something has gone meaningfully wrong. "What's your name?" Dante asks, already making calculations about how to handle this without creating the kind of documentation his presence here would generate if airport security got involved with a lost minor. "Isabella," she provides readily, then adds with careful precision, "Isabella Rose Chun. The Rose is for my grandma who died before I was born, and Chun is Mama's name because my daddy left before I got here, so I didn't get his name." The explanation tumbles out with the particular cadence of something she's repeated many times, answering questions teachers and doctors and curious strangers have asked. She shifts her weight, And Dante notices her shoes, sneakers that were probably purchased at a thrift store, the kind that are clean and well-maintained but clearly secondhand, with someone else's wear patterns already worked into the soles. The observation connects to the frayed coat and the careful way Isabella clutches her worn reindeer, building a picture of a family where every dollar gets stretched as far as possible before it snaps. "I'm Dante," he offers, the automatic impulse to provide his name surprising him. He hasn't introduced himself to strangers without calculation in over a decade. Every interaction in his world serves strategic purpose, building networks, establishing dominance, maintaining the careful balance of fear and respect his position requires. But Isabella smiles at his name like he's given her something valuable, a small expression of relief that she's not completely alone anymore. "That's a nice name, like the poet we learned about in school." "Miss Rosa says Dante wrote about going through darkness to find light, which sounds scary but also kind of brave." The literary reference catches Dante off guard. Most people his age don't know Dante Alighieri beyond vague awareness of historical significance. But a 6-year-old quoting her teacher's lesson about journeys through darkness feels like the universe deploying uncomfortable metaphors specifically for his benefit. "Are you waiting for a plane too?" Isabella asks, settling herself into the chair beside him without invitation. The natural assumption of children that adult strangers in airports are fundamentally safe, fundamentally available for conversation. Her small legs swing well above the floor, sneakers creating rhythmic motion as she gets comfortable. "Something like that," Dante answers vaguely, his eyes scanning the terminal for signs of a frantic mother searching for her missing child. He sees holiday travelers in various states of exhaustion and stress, security personnel conducting routine patrols, cleaning staff managing the perpetual battle against airport chaos. But no one moving with the particular desperation of a parent who's discovered their child has vanished. Isabella pulls her reindeer into her lap, adjusting its position with tender care. "This is Rudy. He lost his antler last year when we had to leave our old apartment really fast. Mama says sometimes things get broken when life gets complicated, but that doesn't mean they're not still good." She demonstrates by making the one-antlered reindeer walk across her lap with small bouncing movements. The mention of leaving quickly raises more flags in Dante's assessment. Combined with the absent father and the financial strain evident in every detail of Isabella's appearance, a picture forms of a woman escaping something: domestic violence, dangerous relationship, circumstances requiring sudden relocation, and the kind of hand-to-mouth existence where canceled flights and missed connections create genuine crisis rather than mere inconvenience. "What happened to his antler?" Dante finds himself asking, drawn into conversation despite every tactical instinct screaming that engagement creates complications he doesn't need. "Mama packed our important things really fast one night when it wasn't safe to stay anymore," Isabella explains with the matter-of-fact tone children use when reciting events they don't fully understand but have accepted as reality. "Rudy's antler got caught on something and broke off. But Mama says he's still perfect because being whole isn't about having all your pieces, it's about being loved." The philosophy, delivered by a 6-year-old, hits harder than it should, landing in Dante's chest with uncomfortable weight. He spent 15 years deliberately breaking himself into pieces: the public businessman, the private criminal, the strategist who makes decisions about human lives with mathematical precision, all carefully separated so that none of them have to acknowledge what the others do. His phone buzzes with another message: Marco's coded warning that the window for confirming the Newark route is closing. 3 minutes remaining before the buyers move to their backup supplier. 2.7 million evaporating because Dante's sitting in an airport terminal talking to a lost child about one-antlered reindeer and the philosophy of brokenness. "Santa forgot you again." Dante circles back to her opening words, the statement that had stopped his entire thought process. "What did you mean by again?" Isabella's face falls slightly, brave mask slipping to reveal the disappointment underneath. "Last year, Santa didn't come because we were staying at the shelter and he didn't know where to find us. Mama said Santa has trouble delivering to places that don't have regular addresses. This year, we have an apartment, but Mama's been working so many extra shifts that I think maybe Santa couldn't figure out our schedule. She's trying so hard to make logical sense of why Christmas keeps passing her by, constructing explanations that protect her mother from blame while maintaining some belief in the magic she's supposed to have at her age." The cognitive dissonance of being old enough to understand poverty but young enough to still want to believe in Santa creates a painful middle ground that shows in every word. "This was supposed to be our special Christmas," Isabella continues, her voice getting smaller. "Aunt Marie has a real house in Boston with a tree and everything. Mama saved money for the plane tickets for 2 whole months. But now the flight is canceled and we can't afford new tickets, and I heard Mama crying in the bathroom earlier when she thought I was sleeping on the chairs." The complete picture assembles itself in Dante's mind with devastating clarity. A single mother working multiple jobs, scraping together enough for holiday plane tickets that represented hope and normalcy, only to have weather cancellations destroy the plan and strand them in an airport with no backup options. Isabella wandering away from wherever her mother left her, probably driven by childish restlessness and the particular anxiety kids feel when their parents are obviously stressed. "Your mama's probably very worried," Dante says gently, standing and extending his hand toward Isabella. "We should go find her before she—" "Please don't make me go back yet," Isabella interrupts, her eyes suddenly bright with tears she's been holding back through sheer determination. "I know I'm supposed to stay where she left me, but I heard her on the phone with Aunt Marie saying we can't come anymore because we can't afford the other tickets, and I just needed to not hear her be sad for a few more minutes. I'm not lost. I know exactly where she is. I just needed to be somewhere else for a little bit." The honesty in that confession, the admission that she's not actually lost but hiding from her mother's pain, strikes Dante as possibly the most emotionally mature thing he's heard all year. This 6-year-old consciously choosing temporary separation to give her mother private space to grieve their ruined plans, to cry without her daughter witnessing, demonstrates the kind of awareness that should never be required of someone her age. His phone buzzes one final time. The window has closed. The Newark route is gone, claimed by someone else who responded within their deadline. $2.7 million disappeared because Dante couldn't bring himself to hit confirm, while listening to a child explain why Santa keeps forgetting her. Marco appears at the edge of Dante's peripheral vision, the subtle head tilt that asks if there's a problem, if intervention is needed. Dante gives the smallest negative shake, stand down, situation handled, even though he has no idea if that's true. He has no plan here beyond the growing certainty that walking away isn't happening. "How about we sit here together for a few more minutes?" Dante hears himself offer, retaking his seat and gesturing for Isabella to remain beside him. "Then we'll go find your mama together. But first, tell me about what Santa would have brought if he'd remembered." Isabella's face transforms with surprised gratitude, the expression of someone who expected rejection but received grace instead. She settles back into her chair, Rudy repositioned on her lap, and launches into enthusiastic description of the presents she'd hoped for. Nothing extravagant, just books and art supplies, and maybe a new winter coat that actually fits and has a working zipper. The modesty of her Christmas wishes, each item carefully practical rather than frivolous, tells Dante everything about how poverty shapes children's dreams. She's learned not to want too much, to keep her hopes confined to necessities dressed up as treats, to find excitement in the prospect of a coat that actually keeps her warm. While Isabella talks, painting pictures of hypothetical Christmases that live only in imagination, Dante makes a decision that violates approximately every rule he's established for his own survival. He opens a different message thread on his phone and begins typing instructions that will cost him significantly more than $2.7 million before this day ends. But somewhere between Santa skipped us again and learning about one antlered reindeer who are still perfect despite missing pieces, Dante stopped calculating strategic advantage and started doing something he hasn't done in 15 years. He started choosing what felt right over what made business sense. The text Dante sends goes to 3 different people simultaneously, each message carefully crafted for its specific recipient. To Marco, situation developing. Standby for civilian assist protocol. No official channels. To his assistant Victoria, need immediate access to corporate card. No limit, no questions. To his logistics coordinator, Christmas emergency fund active. We'll explain later. The responses come back within seconds, all variations of confused acknowledgement. His team has learned over the years that when the boss issues directives in that particular tone, you execute first and seek clarification later. Questions can wait until everyone's alive to ask them. Isabella has moved on from describing hypothetical presence to explaining the intricate social dynamics of her first-grade classroom, a narrative that involves someone named Tommy who steals erasers, a girl called Priya who shares her lunch, and Miss Rosa who apparently possesses infinite patience and saint-like qualities. The child's ability to find joy in recounting everyday school drama while sitting in an airport terminal after her Christmas plans collapse speaks to resilience Dante recognizes from his own childhood, the survival skill of finding normal moments to cling to when everything else feels like it's disintegrating. "Does your school have a winter concert?" Dante asks, surprising himself with genuine curiosity rather than tactical information gathering. He's trying to keep Isabella talking, keep her distracted from whatever worry is building behind those two old eyes. "We did. Last week." Isabella's face lights up with the memory. "I was a singing snowflake. We wore white t-shirts, and Miss Rosa put glitter on our faces, and we sang 5 songs about winter and friendship and hot chocolate. Mama came even though she had to miss work, and she cried, but the happy kind of crying, not the sad kind like in the bathroom today." The image of a single mother choosing unpaid time off to watch her daughter be a singing snowflake, that choice between income and presence, creates an uncomfortable mirror to Dante's own failures with Lucia. His daughter had a winter concert 2 weeks ago, and he'd sent his regrets via the nanny, too buried in negotiating territory disputes with the Calabrese family to spare 2 hours for elementary school performances. Lucia had accepted his absence with the resigned grace of a 7-year-old who'd learned that Daddy's work always came first. She hadn't cried or complained, just asked if he could watch the video the school posted online. He still hasn't watched it. The link sits in his messages, buried under hundreds of encrypted communications about shipments and payments and threats. "I bet you were the best snowflake there," Dante says, and means it in ways that have nothing to do with actual performance quality and everything to do with wanting this child to feel seen, to feel like her moment of sparkly-faced glory mattered to someone beyond her exhausted mother. "I forgot some words in the second song," Isabella confesses with the guileless honesty children employ before learning to curate their self-presentation. "But Miss Rosa says that's okay because the audience can't tell if you keep smiling and mouth watermelon over and over. It looks like you're singing real words." The mental image of an entire chorus of first-graders mouthing watermelon through forgotten lyrics makes Dante's mouth twitch with something dangerously close to a smile. When was the last time he'd smiled about something that wasn't calculated charm for business purposes? When had amusement become another tactical tool rather than genuine response? His phone buzzes with confirmation from Victoria. Corporate card activated. $50,000 limit raised to unlimited for next 24 hours. "Are you okay? This is unusual even for you." The concern in her message is valid. In 5 years of working as his executive assistant, managing both his legitimate business holdings and the more delicate scheduling his actual enterprises require, Victoria has never seen him deploy emergency protocols for anything that didn't involve immediate physical danger or legal jeopardy. "I'm fine. We'll explain later." "Need you to do something else," Dante types back. "Research fastest route to Boston from LaGuardia today. Private options. Cost irrelevant." Isabella has started shivering slightly despite the terminal's climate control, and Dante realizes that her coat's broken zipper isn't just cosmetic damage. It's actually failing to provide adequate warmth. December in New York doesn't forgive insufficient clothing, and airports always run cold, the constant opening of doors and press of bodies creating unpredictable temperature zones. "Are you cold?" Dante asks, already shrugging out of his own coat, a charcoal gray cashmere piece that cost more than Isabella's mother probably made in a month. "A little," Isabella admits, then quickly adds, "But I'm okay. Mama says I'm tough like her, that Chin women don't complain about things we can't change." The statement carries the weight of family mythology, lessons passed down about strength and endurance, teaching a 6-year-old to minimize her own discomfort. Dante drapes the coat around her small shoulders anyway, watching it completely engulf her frame, the sleeves hanging well past her hands. She looks like a child playing dress-up in adult clothes, swimming in expensive fabric that probably contains more wool content than everything in her family's closet combined. "Now you'll be cold," Isabella protests, but she's already burrowing into the coat's warmth with visible relief, her shivering gradually subsiding. "I run warm." Dante lies smoothly, ignoring the immediate chill that hits him in his shirt sleeves. The terminal's ambient temperature is probably 68 degrees, uncomfortable but survivable. He's endured far worse in the name of maintaining appearances. Besides, that coat looks better on you anyway. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Isabella giggles at that, the sound bright and unexpected, cutting through the terminal's ambient drone of announcements and rolling luggage. It's like wearing a blanket, a really fancy blanket that smells like... She pauses, trying to identify the scent, like expensive stores and important meetings. The description is more accurate than she knows. The coat carries traces of the cologne Dante wears to maintain his public persona, the leather interior of his town car, the particular smell of wealth and power that clings to objects when they exist exclusively in rarefied air. It's the olfactory signature of a life Isabella has never touched, never even glimpsed except perhaps through store windows she passes without entering. Marco materializes closer now, within conversational range, but maintaining enough distance to avoid seeming intrusive. His expression carries questions he's too professional to voice in front of a child, but his posture communicates clearly, "Boss, what exactly are we doing here?" Dante gives him a subtle gesture, patience, plan forming, and returns his attention to Isabella, who's examining the coat's interior with the fascination children bring to discovering new textures and details. "There's a special pocket on the inside," Isabella announces with delight, her small hand disappearing into the coat's depths. "It's so soft. What do you keep in here?" "Usually nothing," Dante admits, though that's not entirely true. The interior pocket typically holds whatever weapon he's carrying that day, nothing large enough to set off metal detectors, but sufficient to make a point if confrontation becomes unavoidable. Today it's empty, because he'd locked his usual carry piece in the airport locker when he realized his flight might involve additional security screening. "You should keep something special there," Isabella advises seriously. "Like a lucky stone or a picture of someone you love. Mama keeps my school picture in her wallet, even though it's from last year and my front tooth is missing. She says it's her favorite picture because I look like myself with no pretending." The concept of looking like yourself with no pretending strikes Dante as something he hasn't achieved in well over a decade. Every photograph of him is carefully curated, the legitimate businessman at charity events, the devoted father in professionally staged family portraits that hang in his study but bear little resemblance to actual family life, the careful neutral expression he maintains in any situation where cameras might be present. He's forgotten what his face looks like when it's not performing a role. Victoria's response arrives, multiple private charter options available. Fastest, executive aviation services, can depart within 90 minutes, $12,000 for single engine, $28,000 for jet. Weather window closing tonight. After 8 p.m., nothing flying until day after Christmas. Shall I book? Dante stares at the message, his thumb hovering over the response. $20,000 to put a woman and child he met 30 minutes ago on a private jet to Boston, so they can have the Christmas their canceled commercial flight stole from them. It's an insane amount of money for strangers, a ridiculous deployment of resources that serves no strategic purpose. It's also less than he'd spent last month on a Calabrese family gift basket, the kind of tribute payment that maintains diplomatic relations between criminal enterprises. Less than the cost of the watch on his wrist. Less than he'd lose if the Newark route had gone sideways and required cleanup. Book the jet. 90-minute departure works. Send details. He types back before he can reconsider. Isabella, Dante says carefully, turning to find her practically drowning in his coat, only her face visible above the cashmere like a turtle in an expensive shell. I think we should go find your mama now. I have an idea about how to help with your Christmas problem. Isabella's eyes go wide with hope and caution warring in equal measure, the expression of someone who's learned that promises often disappoint but hasn't quite given up on wanting to believe in them. What kind of idea? The kind that gets you to Boston to see Aunt Marie, Dante answers, standing and offering his hand again. This time Isabella takes it without hesitation, her small fingers wrapping around his with complete trust that makes his chest tight. They walk together through Terminal C, Isabella still engulfed in his coat, trailing fabric behind her like a cape. Marco falls into step 3 paces back, maintaining security protocol while simultaneously radiating confusion about why his boss is now holding hands with a 6-year-old and wandering through the airport in shirt sleeves like some kind of underdressed Santa Claus. The terminal has grown more crowded as morning progresses, holiday travelers emerging from overnight stays in airport hotels or early arrivals for departing flights. Dante navigates through the chaos with Isabella's hand firmly in his, her other arm clutching Rudy the one-antlered reindeer against her chest, using Dante's coat as makeshift shelter from the press of hurrying bodies. "How will we find Mama?" Isabella asks, craning her neck to scan the crowds with the limited perspective of someone barely 4 feet tall. "There are so many people." "We'll start where you were supposed to wait," Dante explains, already calculating the most efficient route through the terminal's geography. "By the airline counters. Your mama will either be there looking for you, or we'll have them page her." The mention of paging seems to worry Isabella, her hand tightening in his. "Will she be mad? I wasn't supposed to leave the spot." "She'll be relieved," Dante assures her with certainty born from understanding parental fear. When someone you love goes missing, even for a little while, being mad doesn't even register. You're just grateful they're safe. He knows this from experience. The 3 hours last year when Lucia had wandered out of the secured estate with her nanny, heading toward the neighborhood park without telling security. The terror that had consumed him during those hours, the way his hands had shaken when they'd finally found her safely playing on swings, oblivious to the panic she'd caused. He'd held her for 10 minutes without speaking, just counting her heartbeats to confirm she was real and whole and alive. They round the corner toward the main airline counters, and the scene that greets them is exactly what Dante had anticipated: absolute chaos. The weather cancellations have compressed hundreds of displaced travelers into the rebooking area, lines snaking through cordoned queues with the particular desperation of people fighting for limited resources. Airline staff behind the counters wear expressions of exhausted patience, fielding questions they've already answered 500 times about weather patterns and availability and company policy on refunds. "There!" Isabella shouts suddenly, pulling on Dante's hand with urgency that nearly unbalances her. "There's Mama!" Dante follows her pointing finger to a woman standing apart from the main crowd, phone pressed to her ear with one hand while the other pushes through her dark hair in a gesture that screams stress and fear. She's young, early 30s at most, wearing jeans and a sweater that's pilled at the elbows from repeated washing. Even from this distance, Dante can see the tension in her shoulders, the way she's scanning the crowd with increasing panic while trying to maintain conversation on the phone. The physical resemblance to Isabella is unmistakable: the same dark curls, the same delicate bone structure, the same enormous eyes that currently look red-rimmed and desperate. This is a woman who's just realized her daughter is missing in one of the busiest airports in the country on one of the busiest travel days of the year. "Mama!" Isabella calls out, dropping Dante's hand to run toward her mother with all the speed her small legs can generate, still wrapped in his oversized coat. The woman's head snaps toward her daughter's voice, phone dropping from her ear mid-sentence as she registers Isabella's presence. The expression that crosses her face is primal: relief and fury and love and terror all colliding into something that makes her face crumple. She drops to her knees, right there in the middle of the airport terminal, arms opening as Isabella crashes into her with enough force to nearly knock them both over. The woman's arms wrap around her daughter with desperate strength. Face buried in Isabella's hair as her shoulders shake with sobs, she's clearly been holding back while maintaining enough composure to search. "Oh God! Oh God! Oh God!" She keeps repeating into Isabella's curls, a prayer or a curse or maybe both. "Where were you? I've been looking everywhere. I thought. She doesn't finish the sentence, doesn't voice whatever nightmare scenarios had been playing through her mind, but Dante knows them anyway. Every parent does. The imagined horrors that spring fully formed the moment you realize your child is out of sight: abduction, injury, terror, all the ways the world can hurt small people who can't protect themselves. "I'm sorry, Mama, I'm sorry," Isabella is saying through her own tears, the brave mask she'd maintained with Dante finally cracking now that she's back in her mother's arms. "I just went for a little walk, and then I got turned around, and then I found Mr. Dante, and he stayed with me, and he's really nice, and—" The woman's eyes snap up from her daughter to lock onto Dante, who's been standing at a respectful distance watching the reunion. Her expression shifts in an instant from maternal relief to protective suspicion, arms tightening around Isabella as she processes the presence of a strange man connected to her daughter's disappearance. Dante recognizes that look. He's seen it before in victims of his organization's activities, in people who've learned the hard way that men in expensive clothes aren't automatically safe, that wealth and danger often walk hand in hand. She's reading everything about him in seconds: the custom-tailored shirt, the watch that costs more than her annual rent, the controlled stillness of someone accustomed to violence, Marco's obvious security presence hovering nearby. "Who are you?" The question comes sharp despite her tears, body shifting to place herself between Isabella and this potential threat. "What were you doing with my daughter?" "My name is Dante Moretti," he introduces himself calmly, maintaining careful distance and open body language that communicates no threat. "Isabella found me in Terminal C. She was worried about you being upset about the canceled flight and wanted to give you some space before coming back. I stayed with her to make sure she was safe until we could find you." It's the truth, but incomplete enough to avoid uncomfortable questions about why he'd been alone in that forgotten corner, or what business keeps him in airports with encrypted phones full of incriminating messages. The woman's eyes narrow slightly. She's smart enough to recognize an edited explanation when she hears one, savvy enough to understand that men like Dante don't usually babysit lost children out of pure altruism. "Thank you for staying with her," she says carefully, gratitude and wariness mixing in her tone. "I'm Maya Chun. I only left her for a few minutes to talk to the airline about rebooking, but the line was so long and my phone died and I came back and she wasn't." Her voice breaks again, fresh tears spilling down her face. "But Mr. Dante helped." Isabella interjects, turning in her mother's arms to beam at him with complete trust. "He let me wear his fancy coat because I was cold, and he listened to me talk about school, and he said I was probably the best snowflake in the concert, even though I forgot words. And he has a plan to help us get to Boston." That last part makes Maya's expression sharpen with new concern. "A plan? What plan?" This is a moment where Dante needs to be careful, where offering help to a struggling stranger could come across as either genuine generosity or something far more predatory. He's acutely aware of how this looks: wealthy man, vulnerable woman and child. Offers that sound too good to be true usually are. "The airline has no availability until after Christmas," Dante says, keeping his tone matter-of-fact and professional. "Weather has created a backlog that won't clear for days. But I have access to private charter services. There's a jet available that can get you to Boston in 90 minutes if we move quickly." Maya's face cycles through disbelief, hope, and renewed suspicion in rapid succession. "A private jet? Sir, Mr. Moretti, I can't possibly afford. That's not. Why would you?" She's struggling to form coherent response to an offer that makes no logical sense. "There's no cost to you," Dante clarifies, watching her process this information with the caution of someone who knows that free things always have hidden prices. "Consider it a Christmas gift from someone who understands what it's like to disappoint your child and wish you could fix it." The personal admission slips out before he can stop it, revealing more vulnerability than he typically shows strangers. But something about Maya's exhausted desperation reminds him of his own failures with Lucia, all the promised moments he's missed, all the times he's chosen business over presence, and justified it as providing for her future while neglecting her present. "I can't accept that," Maya says immediately, her pride forming armor against charity despite the hope flickering in her eyes. That has to cost thousands of dollars. I don't take money from strangers, especially not." She stops herself, but Dante can fill in the blank. "Especially not from men who look like they could be dangerous." $20,000 for the jet. Dante provides the exact figure, watching her face pale at the amount. "Which is less than I spend monthly on things that don't matter. Your daughter shared her only granola bar with me because she thought I looked sad and might need it. The least I can do is make sure she gets to have Christmas with her family." Isabella, still wrapped in Dante's coat, is looking between the adults with the anxious expression of children who sense important decisions being made about their lives but have no control over the outcome. "Please, Mama. Mr. Dante is nice. He let me tell him about Tommy stealing erasers, and he didn't get bored even once." "Baby, go sit on that chair for just a minute," Maya instructs gently, pointing to a nearby seat while maintaining visual contact. Mama needs to talk to Mr. Moretti alone for a second. Isabella obeys with visible reluctance, dragging her feet the short distance to the indicated chair and plopping down with exaggerated drama, still cocooned in cashmere that pools around her like a nest. Maya stands, stepping closer to Dante with careful deliberation, her voice dropping to a near whisper that won't carry to her daughter. Why are you really doing this? Men don't spend $30,000 on strangers without wanting something. So what is it you want from me? From us? The directness is admirable, this refusal to be blinded by desperation into accepting what her instincts are telling her doesn't add up. She's protecting her daughter the only way she can, by questioning everything, by refusing to believe in fairy tales that come with dangerous strings attached. Dante respects her wariness, even as it complicates his impulse toward generosity. He considers several possible answers. Deflections about tax write-offs or casual philanthropy, stories about paying forward kindness once received. But something about Maya's steady gaze and Isabella's earlier observation about people looking sad demands honesty. I have a daughter about Isabella's age, Dante says quietly. Her name is Lucia. 2 weeks ago, she had a winter concert at her school, and I missed it because I was too busy with work that I told myself couldn't wait. She hasn't said anything about it, hasn't complained, but I see how she watches the door now when I promise to be home for dinner, that look that says she's already prepared for me to break that promise too. He pauses, surprised by how much that confession costs him, how exposing it feels to admit failure to a stranger. I can't fix what I've broken with my own daughter. Not yet, maybe not ever. But I can make sure yours doesn't have to learn that disappointment is inevitable, that adults can't be trusted to follow through on what they promise. If that makes me suspicious, if that makes you uncomfortable accepting help, I understand. But I promise you this offer comes with no strings, no expectations, nothing beyond wanting to do something decent when I've spent a lot of time doing things that weren't. The vulnerability in that admission hangs between them, truth spoken aloud for maybe the first time in Dante's adult life. He's confessing not just failure as a parent, but the moral weight of a life built on choices he can't undo, damage he can't repair, trying to find some small way to balance accounts that will never reconcile. Maya studies his face with intensity that makes Dante feel uncomfortably seen, her writer's observation skills, because Isabella mentioned her mother notices everything, cataloging details he usually keeps hidden. She's assessing authenticity, trying to determine if his emotion is genuine or performance, whether the pain in his eyes is real or carefully calculated manipulation. You're not safe, she says finally, statement rather than question. Whatever you do, whoever you are beyond this moment, you're someone dangerous. I can see it in how you stand, how your friend back there watches everything like he's expecting threats. Isabella might not understand those signals yet, but I do. No, Dante agrees simply. I'm not safe, but I'm safe for you and Isabella right now in this moment, with this specific offer. I'm not asking to be in your life beyond today. I'm not trying to create debt or obligation. I'm just trying to do one good thing that doesn't have a body count attached. The last phrase slips out unfiltered, more honesty than he intended, confirming her suspicions about the nature of his business without providing details that could endanger her. Maya's eyes widen slightly at the admission, but she doesn't step back, doesn't grab Isabella and run, just continues her assessment. If I say yes, she begins carefully, if we accept this jet, you're not going to show up in Boston asking for repayment. You're not going to contact us later with expectations. This is just what? Random act of Christmas kindness. Random act of desperate self-redemption. Dante corrects with dark humor. But yes, that's the full extent of the transaction. I book the jet, you fly to Boston, you have Christmas with your sister, and I go back to Chicago knowing I did something that actually mattered instead of just adding zeros to accounts I'll never spend. Maya stands there for 10 more seconds that feel eternal, internal battle visible on her face between pragmatic need and protective paranoia. Isabella watches from her chair with barely contained hope, sensing the tipping point but not understanding all the factors in play. Okay, Maya finally whispers, the words seeming to surprise her as much as it surprises Dante. Okay, we'll accept. But only because Isabella has been counting down to this Christmas with Marie for 6 months, and I can't bear watching her try to pretend she's not heartbroken. Not because I trust you, I don't, not fully. but because sometimes you have to take the risk when the alternative is definitely disappointing your kid. Relief washes through Dante with unexpected intensity. "You're making the right choice," he assures her, already pulling out his phone to confirm details with Victoria. "The jet will be ready in 75 minutes. We should head toward the private aviation terminal now to handle documentation." Documentation? Maya's concern spikes again. "What documentation?" "Standard passenger manifest," Dante explains. "Name, ID check, emergency contact. Nothing invasive, just what private aviation requires for legal compliance. Your information stays private, not connected to any public database beyond the flight record." He can see her weighing this new complication, giving her real name and identification to strangers, creating records that could potentially be traced if someone was looking for them. But after a moment she nods, accepting this risk because the alternative is staying stranded in LaGuardia, watching her daughter's Christmas dissolve into just another disappointment. Isabella squeals with delight as Maya tells her they're going to Boston after all, launching herself at both adults with enough enthusiasm to nearly knock them over. "We're really going? We're really going to see Aunt Marie and have Christmas?" "We're really going, baby," Maya confirms, voice thick with emotion as she holds her daughter close. "Thanks to Mr. Moretti's incredibly generous gift." "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Isabella throws her arms around Dante's waist with complete abandon, her small face pressed against his ribs as she squeezes with all her 6-year-old strength. The physical affection catches him off guard. Lucia stopped spontaneous hugging around age 5, learning through observation that Daddy's body was usually too busy or too tense for casual physical contact. Dante's hand settles on Isabella's head with awkward gentleness, and used to this kind of uncomplicated gratitude. "You're welcome. Now let's get you to Boston before Santa has time to skip you for a 3rd year." The walk to the private aviation terminal takes 15 minutes through LaGuardia's complex geography, transitioning from public terminal chaos to the quieter, more refined atmosphere of executive travel. Marco maintains his trailing position, radioing ahead to coordinate logistics, while simultaneously running background checks on executive aviation services to ensure they're legitimate and safe. Isabella chatters throughout the journey, still wearing Dante's coat, telling Maya about everything that happened during their separation, the conversation about one antlered reindeer, the lesson about Dante the poet, her assessment that Mr. Moretti watches exits like someone who understands protecting people. Maya listens with the particular intensity of a parent who's trying to retroactively assess whether her child was in danger, cataloging every detail for signs she might have missed. The private terminal is sleek and understated, designed for wealthy clients who value discretion over flash. A receptionist greets them with professional warmth that doesn't flicker at the sight of Dante in shirt sleeves, a woman in worn jeans, and a small child drowning in expensive cashmere. In this environment, eccentric behavior is expected from clients who pay premium prices for privacy. "Mr. Moretti," the receptionist, her name tag reads Jennifer, greets him with recognition despite this being his first time using this particular facility. Money creates instant familiarity in these spaces. "Your assistant Victoria called ahead. Everything is prepared. We just need passenger information, and we can proceed with boarding." Maya provides her details with visible reluctance, handing over her ID while trying to maintain composure. Dante notices the address on her license is different from what Isabella mentioned about their current apartment, evidence of their recent relocation, probably fleeing whatever situation Isabella had referenced about leaving quickly. "And what about you, Mr. Moretti?" Jennifer asks politely. "Will you be joining the flight?" Dante opens his mouth to decline. The plan was never to insert himself into their Christmas, just to facilitate their ability to have one. But he catches Maya's expression, the way her eyes have gone wide with something that might be panic at the idea of getting on a private jet with a pilot she doesn't know, flying to Boston without any buffer between her and this strange act of charity. "Actually," Dante hears himself say, committing to a choice he hadn't planned but suddenly seems necessary. "Yes, I'll be flying with them, just to make sure they arrive safely." Marco's sharp intake of breath behind him communicates exactly what he thinks about this spontaneous decision, that the boss is officially losing his mind, that this has gone from charitable gesture to active involvement, that nothing good can come from a criminal kingpin playing guardian angel to civilians who deserve better than proximity to his world. But Maya's shoulders drop with visible relief, and Isabella beams at him like he's just performed magic, and Dante realizes he's committed now, whether it's strategically wise or not. Excellent, Jennifer says, adding his information to the manifest. Your jet is fueled and ready. We'll have you in Boston in 90 minutes. The Gulfstream G280 sits on the tarmac like a promise made physical, its white exterior gleaming under the weak December sun that's finally broken through the morning's gray clouds. Isabella presses her face against the terminal window, breath fogging the glass as she stares at the aircraft with undisguised wonder. That's the airplane? Just for us. Her voice carries the particular disbelief of someone encountering luxury, so far outside their experience that it feels fictional. Just for us, Dante confirms, watching Maya's face as she processes the reality of what she's agreed to. The jet represents more than transportation. It's a physical manifestation of the wealth gap between their worlds, the vast distance between a woman who counts pennies for bus fare and a man who can charter private aircraft on impulse. The pilot introduces himself as Captain Andrews, a man in his 50s with the calm competence that comes from thousands of flight hours. He runs through basic safety information with professional efficiency, while a flight attendant, a young woman named Sarah, helps Isabella settle into one of the leather seats that's far too large for her small frame. The interior is exactly what $20,000 buys. Cream leather seats that recline to near horizontal positions, polished wood accents, a galley stocked with premium snacks and beverages, entertainment screens built into the bulkhead. It's the kind of space designed for executives making deals at 40,000 feet, not for single mothers escaping canceled commercial flights with their 6-year-old daughters. Maya sits rigid in her seat, hands gripping the armrests with white-knuckled tension. Dante recognizes the signs of someone who's never flown private before, possibly never flown much at all, trying to maintain composure while processing an experience that feels increasingly surreal. First time on a private jet? Dante asks gently, settling into the seat across the small aisle from her. First time on any jet in probably 5 years, Maya admits, her voice tight. Isabella and I usually take buses or trains if we need to travel. Flying was a huge splurge for Christmas. Tickets I saved for months to afford. And now we're on. She gestures vaguely at the opulent interior. It doesn't feel real. Isabella has recovered from her initial awe and is now exploring every inch of her immediate environment with uninhibited curiosity, pressing buttons to recline her seat, examining the seatbelt mechanism, running small hands over leather that probably costs more per square foot than her family's monthly rent. Look, Mama, the seats have heaters, and there's a TV in the wall. Each discovery gets announced with fresh excitement, her joy uncomplicated by the questions about wealth inequality that are clearly troubling her mother. Sarah returns with warm towels and offers of beverages, treating Isabella with the same professional courtesy she'd show adult passengers. Would you like some hot chocolate, sweetie? We have marshmallows. Really? Isabella looks to her mother for permission, years of training about not asking for expensive things, warring with desperate want. Maya nods, and Isabella's smile could power the entire eastern seaboard. Yes, please. With lots of marshmallows. The jet begins taxiing toward the runway, and Maya's grip on the armrest tightens further. Dante notices her breathing has gone shallow, the physiological signs of anxiety, spiking despite her attempts to hide it from Isabella. Flying makes you nervous, he observes quietly, leaning slightly across the aisle, so his voice won't carry to where Isabella is receiving her hot chocolate from Sarah. Flying in general makes me nervous, Maya admits. Flying in something this small feels like tempting fate. What if something goes wrong? What if... She cuts herself off, not wanting to voice fears that might transmit to her daughter. Captain Andrews has over 20,000 flight hours. Dante provides facts he confirmed with Marco before agreeing to this plan. Perfect safety record. This jet is maintained to standards that exceed commercial aviation requirements. Statistically, you're safer here than you would be driving to the airport. Maya nods but doesn't look convinced, her eyes tracking every sound the aircraft makes as it positions for takeoff. Dante recognizes the particular terror of someone whose life has taught them that good things usually come with catastrophic catches, that moments of hope are often followed by crushing disappointment. Tell me about Marie, Dante suggests, offering distraction. Isabella mentioned she has a real house with a tree. The topic shift works. Maya's face softens thinking about her sister. Marie is 8 years older than me, basically raised me after our parents died when I was 12. She got me through high school, helped pay for the community college classes I took before everything got complicated. She married a good man, Tom. They have a house in Brookline with a yard and stability I've never been able to give Isabella. The engine noise increases as the jet accelerates down the runway, and Maya's narrative falters, her breathing going rapid and shallow. On instinct, Dante reaches across the aisle and offers his hand. Maya stares at it for half a second before gripping it with desperate strength, her palm sweaty against his as the aircraft lifts smoothly off the ground. "Keep talking," Dante instructs. "Tell me about the tree." "Marie always does a real tree," Maya continues, voice shaking but words flowing as she focuses on something beyond her fear. She lets Isabella help decorate it, has special ornaments just for her, ones that say Isabella's first Christmas and Isabella age 4, and every year there's a new one. She keeps them all year in a special box labeled with Bella's name, like she's claiming her, making sure my daughter knows she has family who remembers her even when we're far away and struggling. The jet climbs through clouds, turbulence causing minor shaking that makes Maya's grip on Dante's hand tighten to painful levels, but he doesn't pull away. Isabella, oblivious to her mother's anxiety, is pointing out the window at the cloud formations they're passing through, explaining to Rudy the reindeer about how weather works based on what Miss Rosa taught them in science. "She sounds like a good sister," Dante says, watching Maya's profile as she stares determinedly at the seat back in front of her, using conversation to override panic. "The best," Maya agrees. "After Isabella's father left, after I realized I was pregnant and alone and terrified, Marie wanted me to move to Boston, to live with her and Tom until I got on my feet. But I was too proud, too determined to prove I could handle everything myself. So I stayed in New York, worked terrible jobs with terrible hours, moved from apartment to apartment whenever rent got too high or landlords got too aggressive, dragged my daughter through instability because I was too stubborn to accept help." The confession emerges with the particular honesty that fear sometimes unlocks, walls coming down when adrenaline overrides careful self-editing. "This trip was supposed to be me finally admitting I can't do it alone anymore. Marie offered to let us stay permanently. Tom knows someone who might have a job for me at the company where he works. There's a good public school 3 blocks from their house. We were coming to Boston to stay, not just visit. Everything we own is in the 2 suitcases I checked. Everything important enough to keep." Dante processes this information. Maya wasn't just coming for Christmas. She was escaping New York entirely, making a permanent move toward the stability her sister could provide. The canceled flight hadn't just ruined a holiday, it had derailed her entire plan for building a better life. "And when your flight got canceled," he prompts gently. "Panic," Maya admits simply. "Complete panic. Because I'd already given notice on our apartment, already quit my job, already pulled Isabella out of her school. We were supposed to arrive in Boston yesterday afternoon, have a day to settle before Christmas. Instead, we're homeless technically, jobless definitely, and stranded in an airport with $17 in my checking account until my final paycheck clears next week. The financial reality she's describing is catastrophic. She committed to a move that required everything going according to plan, with no buffer for unexpected complications. The canceled flight hadn't just been an inconvenience, it had been potentially life-destroying. Marie was trying to wire money for new tickets," Maya continues, "but the earliest available flight was December 27th, and by then I don't know what would have happened. We would have had to sleep in the airport for 3 days, I guess. Try to keep Isabella from understanding how badly I'd miscalculated, how thoroughly I'd failed at even this basic attempt to get us somewhere better. The aircraft levels out at cruising altitude, and the seatbelt sign chimes off." Maya's death grip on Dante's hand finally loosens slightly, though she doesn't fully release it, still using that physical anchor to manage residual anxiety. "You didn't fail," Dante says firmly. "You made a brave choice to accept help from your sister, to prioritize your daughter's stability over your own pride. That's the opposite of failure. I failed the moment I let my daughter wander away in an airport because I was too busy crying in the bathroom about our situation," Maya counters with bitter self-recrimination. I failed when I couldn't even manage to book tickets with enough buffer that weather wouldn't destroy everything. I fail every single day that I can't give Isabella what she deserves, a stable home, a parent who doesn't work 3 jobs, Christmas mornings that actually feel magical instead of disappointing. Isabella appears at her mother's side, hot chocolate finished, oblivious to the emotional conversation happening between adults. Mama, can I show Mr. Dante the picture I drew of our new life in Boston? The one with the house and the tree, and you smiling because you're not tired anymore. The innocence of that request, the child's artwork depicting a future where her mother gets to stop being exhausted, lands like a physical blow. Maya's eyes fill with tears. She blinks back rapidly, not wanting her daughter to see her break. Of course, baby, Maya manages. Get it from your backpack. Isabella retrieves a piece of construction paper folded carefully in her small backpack, presenting it to Dante with solemn pride. The drawing is done in crayon with the limited technical skill of a 6-year-old, but the emotional content is devastatingly clear. A house with a triangle roof, a Christmas tree visible through a square window, 4 stick figures holding hands labeled in careful letters. Me, Mama, Aunt Mare, Uncle Tom. This is beautiful, Dante says, meaning it in ways that have nothing to do with artistic merit and everything to do with what it represents. A child's hope for stability, for family, for a version of life where her mother doesn't have to carry everything alone. That's our new house, Isabella explains, pointing to each element. And that's the tree with presents under it, and that's all of us on Christmas morning being happy together. Mama says this Christmas is when everything gets better, when we stop having to move and I can stay in the same school and make friends who I'll still know next year. The faith in her voice, the absolute trust that this move will fix everything, creates pressure in Dante's chest that feels dangerously close to the emotions he usually keeps sealed away. This child believes in the fairy tale her mother is trying desperately to create. The idea that one good decision, one act of accepting help, can transform their circumstances from struggle to security. Sarah appears to ask if anyone wants lunch, and Isabella bounces back to her seat to examine the menu options with rapturous attention. Maya uses the distraction to finally release Dante's hand, flexing her fingers to restore circulation after her prolonged grip. Thank you, she says quietly, for the distraction, for not letting me completely lose it in front of Bella. She doesn't need to know how close I was to a full panic attack. She knows more than you think, Dante observes gently. Kids always do. But she also knows you're doing everything you can for her, and that matters more than whether you occasionally fall apart under impossible pressure. Maya laughs, the sound carrying more bitterness than humor. Is that what you tell yourself? When you miss your daughter's concerts and important moments, do you convince yourself she understands you're doing your best? The question is sharp enough to draw blood, and Dante flinches from its accuracy. No, he admits. I tell myself I'm providing for her future, keeping her safe from the dangerous parts of my world, giving her the kind of security I never had. But you're right, those are excuses, not reasons. I'm protecting myself from vulnerability more than I'm protecting her from anything real. At least you can admit it, Maya says, some of the sharpness leaving her voice. Most men I've known can't even do that. They just keep insisting their absence is necessary, their neglect is actually love, their failures are somehow someone else's fault. Is that what Isabella's father did? Dante asks carefully, treading into territory that might not be his business, but feels relevant to understanding the landscape of Maya's life. Maya's expression hardens. Isabella's father decided fatherhood was too much responsibility about 3 weeks after I told him I was pregnant. He wanted me to handle it, make it go away, preserve his freedom to keep being 25 and irresponsible. When I refused, he disappeared, changed his number, moved out of our shared apartment while I was at work, blocked me on every platform. I heard through mutual friends he moved to California, started some tech company that actually succeeded. He's probably a millionaire now, living his best life while his daughter wears secondhand clothes and dreams about Christmases that don't forget her. The anger in her voice is old but not diminished, refined through years of single parenting into something sharp and permanent. So forgive me if I'm skeptical about wealthy men who suddenly show up offering generous help. In my experience, men with money use it to avoid responsibility, not to help strangers fix their problems. That's fair, Dante acknowledges. And accurate for a lot of men, probably including me in most contexts. But right now, in this specific situation, I'm trying to be different. Maybe I'm doing it for selfish reasons, trying to buy my own redemption by proxy, but the outcome is still that Isabella gets to have Christmas with her family. Why? Maya asks directly, turning in her seat to face him fully. Why do you actually care? You have your own daughter, your own life, your own, whatever business you're involved in that requires armed security and encrypted phones. Why take time and money and attention to fix our problems? It's the same question she asked in the terminal, but with more urgency now that they're 40,000 feet in the air, committed to this course. Dante considers several possible answers, weighing honesty against self-protection, before settling on truth that feels uncomfortable but necessary. Because your daughter asked if I was lost too, he says simply. And I realized I have been lost for 15 years, so focused on building empire and accumulating power that I forgot why any of it mattered. I've spent a decade and a half making choices I justified as necessary, hurting people I rationalized as acceptable casualties, becoming someone I'm not sure I recognize anymore. And then this 6-year-old with a one-antlered reindeer saw through all of that in 5 seconds and identified the core problem I've been ignoring. He pauses, surprised by how much he's revealing to this woman he met 3 hours ago. I can't undo what I've done. Can't bring back the people I've hurt or fix the damage my choices created. But I can make sure Isabella gets to Boston, gets to have the Christmas she's been counting on, gets to see her mother smile because she's not tired anymore. It's not redemption. Nothing could be, but it's something, and I need it to be something more than I probably need the $2.7 million I lost by staying with her instead of confirming the business deal I was supposed to handle. Maya absorbs this confession with the same intense focus she'd shown earlier, reading his face for lies or manipulation. $2.7 million? You lost $2.7 million because you stayed with Isabella instead of handling your business. Would have lost more than that if the deal had gone wrong, Dante clarifies. But yes, approximately that amount in immediate profit. The buyers moved on to their backup supplier when I didn't respond in time. And you're not angry. Maya's disbelief is evident. You don't resent us for costing you that kind of money. I resent myself for building a life where that amount of money matters more than helping a child who needed someone to not walk away, Dante answers. The money will come around again in different form. But the chance to do something decent, to be the person who shows up instead of the person who calculates cost-benefit analysis before offering basic human kindness, that chance felt more valuable. Isabella returns with her menu selections triumphantly announced. She wants the turkey sandwich and fruit salad, and could she please have cookies for dessert? Sarah takes the orders with gracious professionalism, including Maya's confused request for whatever's easiest, and Dante's usual preference for coffee, black, nothing else needed. Mr. Dante, Isabella says, settling back into her seat with Rudy repositioned on her lap, when we get to Boston, do you want to meet Aunt Marie? She makes really good cookies, and Uncle Tom tells funny jokes, and they have a dog named Charlie who's very friendly and only jumps on people sometimes. The invitation is offered with complete sincerity, this child already incorporating him into her expanding family circle like his presence in their Christmas plans is natural rather than extraordinary. Maya's expression shows alarm at her daughter's assumption, clearly about to redirect and explain that Mr. Moretti has his own family and obligations. I'd like that, Dante hears himself say, committing to yet another deviation from any reasonable plan. If your Aunt Marie and Uncle Tom don't mind an unexpected guest. Are you serious? Maya asks incredulously. You're going to fly us to Boston on a private jet, and then what? Come to my sister's house for Christmas? That's insane. That's not how any of this works. How is it supposed to work? Dante counters. I've never done this before. Random act of holiday intervention. There's no rule book I'm following. The rule book says wealthy strangers help from a distance. Maya insists, her voice tight with discomfort. They write checks or arrange transportation, and then disappear back to their own lives. They don't follow through to actual Christmas dinner, don't insert themselves into family moments they're not part of. Maybe that rule book needs updating, Dante suggests. Maybe showing up completely is better than helping halfway and disappearing before you see whether it actually matters. Isabella is watching this exchange with anxious attention, sensing adult tension but not understanding its source. Did I do something wrong? Is Mr. Dante not allowed to come to Christmas? You didn't do anything wrong, baby, Maya reassures quickly. Adults are just... We're figuring out how this works. It works by being nice to people who are nice to us, Isabella declares with the simple moral clarity of childhood logic. Mr. Dante is being nice, so we should be nice back and invite him to Christmas. That's what Miss Rosa says about the Golden Rule. The elementary school teacher's philosophy, deployed by a 6-year-old, effectively ends the argument. Maya shakes her head with reluctant surrender, recognizing when she's been outmaneuvered by her own daughter's ethical framework. Fine, she agrees, though tension remains in her shoulders. But call your daughter first. Make sure she knows where you are. Parents don't just disappear to Boston without telling their kids. The reminder lands with appropriate guilt. Dante had been so focused on fixing Maya and Isabella's Christmas that he completely neglected to inform anyone in his own life about this spontaneous detour. He pulls out his phone and steps toward the rear of the cabin for privacy, dialing Lucia's number while Maya watches with cautious approval. His daughter answers on the third ring, her voice carrying the studied casualness of someone trying not to sound too eager. Hi, Daddy. Hi, Princess, Dante responds, the nickname feeling rusty from disuse. I have something to tell you, and I need you not to be upset. You're missing Christmas, Lucia states flatly, the resignation in her 7-year-old voice cutting deeper than anger could. Something came up with work. Mrs. Chin will make sure I'm okay. It's fine. The automated acceptance of his absence, the script she's already prepared for disappointment, feels like being stabbed repeatedly with a dull knife. No, Dante says firmly. I'm not missing Christmas. I'm in Boston right now, helping some people who needed it, and I wanted you to know where I am. Silence on the other end, Lucia processing this unexpected deviation from pattern. You're in Boston? Why? Remember I told you about the winter concert I missed? Dante keeps his voice gentle. I met a little girl today who reminded me of you. She was lost in the airport with her mama, and their Christmas was falling apart, and I realized I could help. So I did. But I'm coming home tomorrow, and when I get there, I want to talk about how I can do better at showing up for you. More silence, then Lucia's small voice asking, Do you promise? That you're coming back and we'll talk. I promise, Dante vows, meaning it with intensity that surprises him. I'm done choosing work over you. I'm done pretending that being physically safe is the same as being actually present. I'm going to figure out how to be your dad instead of just the person who pays for things you need. Okay, Lucia whispers, hope and skepticism mixed in equal measure. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Princess. So much. More than I've been good at showing. The call ends, and Dante stands in the back of the jet for a moment, processing the commitment he's just made to his daughter, the promise to change patterns that have defined their relationship since her mother left. Marco's voice crackles through his earpiece. His second-in-command has been maintaining discreet silence but clearly monitoring the situation. Boss, you good? The question carries layers of concern about Dante's mental state, his spontaneous decision-making, the civilians he's involved himself with. I'm figuring it out, Dante responds quietly. Clear my schedule for the next 48 hours. Whatever meetings were planned can be rescheduled or handled by others. I'm taking actual time off. You haven't taken time off in 6 years, Marco protests. The family will deal with it, Dante interrupts firmly. I'm making different choices starting now. Tell them I'm handling a personal matter that takes priority over business. If anyone has problems with that, they can discuss it with me when I'm back. He disconnects before Marco can argue further, returning to his seat to find Isabella asleep against her mother's shoulder, the excitement and emotional intensity of the morning finally catching up to her. Maya has one arm wrapped protectively around her daughter, the other hand idly stroking Isabella's dark curls. Thank you for calling your daughter, Maya says quietly, acknowledging his concession to her earlier demand. It matters that you told her where you are. You were right, Dante admits, settling back into his seat. I've spent years justifying absence as protection, when really it's been cowardice. Easier to stay distant than risk being fully present and failing at it. And now, Maya prompts. What changes? Everything, Dante says with certainty that surprises himself. Or at least, I'm going to try to change everything. Starting with actually being available to my daughter instead of outsourcing her entire childhood to nannies and tutors. Maybe failing at active participation is better than succeeding at strategic distance. The jet begins its descent into Boston's Logan Airport, and Maya's hand reflexively finds Dante's again, her fear of flying not erased just because the first takeoff went smoothly. He lets her hold on through the landing, this small act of comfort costing him nothing but offering her something she clearly needs. They touch down with barely a bump, Captain Andrews' skill evident in the smooth landing that makes Maya exhale with visible relief. Through the windows, Boston appears gray and cold, snow covering everything in that particularly beautiful way December achieves right before Christmas. "Welcome to Boston," Sarah announces cheerfully. "Ground transportation has been arranged per Mr. Moretti's instructions. Your luggage will be retrieved from LaGuardia and delivered to your destination address within 24 hours. Maya looks startled. "You arranged for our checked bags to be forwarded? How did you when did you have time?" "Victoria is extremely efficient," Dante explains, referencing his assistant who has clearly been working overtime to anticipate and solve problems. "I gave her Marie's address from the flight manifest. Everything you checked will arrive by tomorrow afternoon." "I don't know how to process this level of Maya struggles for words. "This kind of problem-solving isn't supposed to exist for people like me. We deal with lost luggage by filing claims that go nowhere and replacing what we can't afford to replace. We don't have assistants who just fix things." "Today you do," Dante says simply. "At least today you get to experience how the other half lives. Tomorrow you can go back to being appropriately skeptical of wealthy strangers who overfunction in crisis situations." Isabella wakes as the jet taxis to the private terminal, blinking sleepily and taking a moment to remember where she is. When memory returns, her face transforms with joy that's almost painful to witness, pure happiness unmarred by cynicism or doubt. "We're in Boston. We're really in Boston." She presses her face against the window, trying to see everything at once. "Mama, we made it. We're going to have Christmas." The car service waiting for them is a black SUV driven by a professional chauffeur who helps load their minimal carry-on luggage with discreet efficiency. Maya provides her sister's address in Brookline with a voice that shakes slightly. They're 20 minutes away from the destination that's been their goal for months, the promise of stability that's kept her going through impossible circumstances. Dante settles into the front passenger seat, giving Maya and Isabella the back row for their private moment. Through the rearview mirror, he watches Maya hold her daughter close, both of them looking out the windows as Boston slides past, this city that represents hope and new beginnings. His phone buzzes with a message from Victoria. "Your daughter called the office. She wanted to make sure you were really coming home tomorrow. I confirmed you'd be back by evening." She sounded happy, boss. "When's the last time that happened?" The observation hits hard because Victoria's right. Lucia's default emotional state has been resigned acceptance rather than happiness for longer than Dante can remember. The idea that one phone call, one honest promise, could shift that dynamic suggests he's been creating his daughter's unhappiness through his own choices more than he'd wanted to acknowledge. The drive to Marie's house takes them through neighborhoods that transition from urban commercial to residential suburban, each block representing movement toward the kind of stable, middle-class existence Maya has been chasing. When they pull up in front of a modest two-story colonial with a wreath on the door and Christmas lights along the roofline, Maya's breath catches audibly. "There it is," she whispers. "That's the house." Before the SUV fully stops, the front door flies open and a woman emerges, clearly Marie, the resemblance to Maya unmistakable despite the 8-year age gap. She's followed by a large man in a holiday sweater and a golden retriever who bounds down the steps with enthusiasm that validates Isabella's warning about Charlie's occasional jumping. Isabella is out of the car before Dante can even open his door, running up the snow-covered walkway with all the speed her small legs can generate. "Aunt Marie, we made it. We're here." Marie scoops her niece up with the ease of someone who's done this many times, spinning her in a circle while the dog circles them, both barking joyfully. Maya exits the car more slowly, her emotional control clearly fracturing as her sister sets Isabella down and focuses on her. "Maya," Marie says, and the single word carries years of worry and love and relief that her baby sister is finally here, Finally safe, finally accepting help. The two women embrace with the intensity of people who've survived separation and struggle, who've maintained connection across distance that felt sometimes insurmountable. Dante hangs back, allowing this reunion its private moment, but Isabella is already pulling on Marie's hand, dragging her attention to the SUV where he stands. "Aunt Marie, this is Mr. Dante. He's the reason we got here. Our airplane got canceled, but he has a private jet, and he let us fly on it, and we had hot chocolate with lots of marshmallows, and he called his daughter to tell her where he was, and he's going to have Christmas with us if that's okay." The explanation tumbles out in one breathless rush, and Marie's eyes widen as she processes this information, her gaze moving from Isabella to Dante, and back with visible confusion about how any of this makes sense. "I'm Dante Moretti," he introduces himself, approaching with deliberate, non-threatening body language. "I met Maya and Isabella at LaGuardia this morning when their flight was canceled. I was in a position to help with transportation, and your niece very kindly invited me to join you for Christmas, though I completely understand if that's presumptuous and you'd prefer I." "You flew them here? On a private jet?" Marie interrupts, her writer's sister brain clearly spinning, trying to construct a narrative where this adds up. "Why would you? I don't understand. Maya, who is this man?" Maya has recovered enough composure to handle introductions, though tears still track down her face. "He's someone who helped when we needed it. Someone who proved that occasionally kindness exists without strings attached. Can we maybe process this inside? It's freezing, and I haven't hugged my baby niece in 6 months." Tom, the man in the holiday sweater, has been watching this unfold with the bemused expression of someone whose Christmas just got a lot more complicated than anticipated. "Well, this is certainly the most interesting holiday guest situation we've ever had," he says with good humor. "I'm Tom Chun, and you're welcome in our home, Mr. Moretti, assuming my wife agrees and you're not secretly a serial killer." "Not a serial killer," Dante confirms, appreciating Tom's direct approach. "Though I understand the skepticism. This is unconventional." "Unconventional is putting it mildly," Marie mutters, but she's already ushering everyone toward the house, maternal instincts overriding confusion. "Come inside before we all freeze. We can figure out what's happening once everyone has hot drinks and isn't standing in the snow." The interior of the house is exactly what Isabella's drawing depicted: warm, lived in, decorated for Christmas with the kind of comfortable excess that comes from people who genuinely love the holiday rather than treating it as obligation. A massive tree dominates the living room, covered in ornaments that span decades and styles, the kind of tree that tells family history through its decorations. Isabella makes a sound that might be a sob or a laugh, or both, taking in the reality that matches her months of anticipation. "It's perfect," she breathes. "It's exactly perfect." Charlie the dog has decided Isabella is his new favorite person, sticking to her side with devoted attention while she explores the living room, touching ornaments gently and examining the presents already arranged under the tree. Marie watches her niece with visible emotion, then turns to Maya with questions in her eyes. "Kitchen," Maya says quietly. "Let me explain in the kitchen while Isabella explores." The sisters disappear into the adjacent room, leaving Dante with Tom and an enthusiastic golden retriever who's now investigating whether this new human might have food. Tom gestures Dante toward the couch with welcoming efficiency. "So," Tom begins conversationally, "you're either the best person Maya's ever met, or this is going to turn into a Lifetime movie where the too-good-to-be-true stranger turns out to have sinister motives. Which is it?" The directness makes Dante appreciate Tom's protective instinct toward his wife's family. "I'm complicated," he admits honestly. "I'm not secretly evil, but I'm not entirely good either. I'm someone who does morally questionable work for a living and happened to meet your niece this morning at a moment when I needed to do something decent more than she needed my help. Everything I've done today has been genuine, no hidden agenda, no expectations beyond wanting to make sure Isabella got to have this Christmas." Tom studies him with a shrewd assessment of someone who works in business, who understands people and motives and the space between what's said and what's meant. Morally questionable work. That's an interesting way to phrase it. Are we talking white-collar crime, or something that involves more direct harm? "I'd rather not specify," Dante says carefully. "Not because I'm trying to hide it from you, but because knowing details could make you legally complicated if anyone ever asked questions. Better for your family if I remain vague about occupation. That's fair, Tom acknowledges. And probably smart. Marie, and I appreciate you helping them get here, truly. Maya's been through hell, and Isabella deserves better than what life's given her so far. If you made that easier today, you have our gratitude regardless of what you do Monday through Friday. From the kitchen comes the sound of Maya's voice explaining the day's events, occasional exclamations from Marie punctuating the narrative. Isabella has found a box of ornaments with her name on it, exactly as Maya had described, and is examining each one with reverent care while Charlie supervises. Mr. Dante, Isabella calls out, come look. This one says, Isabella's first Christmas, and I was just a tiny baby. And this one is from when I was 3, and Aunt Marie taught me to make cookies. She saves them all for me. Dante joins her by the box, looking at the collection of ornaments that represent Marie's commitment to maintaining connection with a niece she rarely got to see. Each one is labeled and dated, a chronological record of Isabella's life maintained by an aunt who refused to let distance dissolve family bonds. Your Aunt Marie loves you very much, Dante observes, watching Isabella's small hands trace the ornament details. She made sure you always had a place here, even when you were far away. Mama says family is the people who remember you matter even when you're not there to remind them, Isabella quotes. Aunt Marie remembers I matter. The philosophy, delivered by a 6-year-old, contains more wisdom than most adults achieve in lifetimes. Dante thinks about Lucia, about whether he's been remembering she matters or just assuming his financial provision communicates care without requiring actual presence. Maya and Marie emerge from the kitchen, both having clearly been crying but now recovered to functional composure. Marie approaches Dante with extended hand, an expression that's warmed from suspicious to cautiously grateful. Thank you for helping my sister and niece when they needed it, Marie says formally. Maya explained what happened today, and I'm struggling to process the generosity of strangers, but I'm choosing to accept it as genuine kindness. You're welcome to stay for Christmas dinner tomorrow if you'd like, though I imagine you have your own family waiting in Chicago. I do have a daughter, Dante confirms, but I've already arranged to fly home tomorrow evening, and I'd be honored to join you for dinner if the invitation stands. It stands, Tom confirms from the couch. We're doing prime rib and all the traditional sides, and Marie makes a chocolate cake that's legitimately dangerous. Plus, Isabella will be devastated if you disappear before she can show you her new life in Boston properly. Isabella, overhearing this exchange, abandons her ornament exploration to throw her arms around Dante's waist again. You're staying for Christmas. This is the best Christmas ever. We have Aunt Marie and Uncle Tom and Charlie, and you and Mama's not crying sad tears anymore, and Santa didn't forget us after all. The joy in her voice, the absolute conviction that this Christmas has transformed from disappointment to perfect, creates pressure behind Dante's eyes that feels dangerously close to tears. When was the last time he cried? Probably his own parents' funeral, 16 years ago. He'd learned to convert grief into anger, sadness into calculation, all emotions into fuel for the empire he was building. But watching Isabella's happiness, feeling her small arms squeeze him with all her strength, something in his carefully constructed armor cracks. This child who'd been prepared for Santa to skip her again has decided that his presence qualifies as Christmas magic, and the weight of that faith feels simultaneously undeserved and precious. Best Christmas ever, Dante agrees, his voice rougher than intended. I'm glad I got to be part of it. The evening unfolds with surprising ease, the initial awkwardness dissolving as Marie and Tom prove to be genuinely warm hosts rather than people performing hospitality out of obligation. Tom makes dinner, pasta and salad, nothing fancy but executed with competent efficiency, while Marie shows Isabella her new bedroom, the space she'll occupy permanently now that Maya and her daughter are staying. The room is small but thoughtfully prepared. A twin bed with a purple comforter Isabella loves on site, a desk by the window for homework, shelves waiting to hold books and toys, and whatever treasures a 6-year-old accumulates. On the nightstand is a photograph in a frame. Maya and Isabella from years ago, younger versions but clearly the same people, smiling at the camera with genuine happiness. I've been saving this room for you, Marie tells her niece, voice thick with emotion. Tom and I talked about maybe having kids someday, but we decided this space belongs to you first. You and your mama get to be here as long as you need, as long as you want. This is home now, Bella. Real home, not temporary. Isabella processes this while clutching Rudy against her chest, the one antlered reindeer serving as emotional support while she tries to absorb the magnitude of what's being offered. Forever home, she asks quietly, like where Charlie came from when Uncle Tom got him from the shelter. The kind of home where nobody can make you leave. Forever home, Marie confirms. The kind where you get to stay, where you belong, where you're not a guest but family. The concept of forever, of stability that doesn't depend on making rent or avoiding landlords or escaping dangerous situations, is clearly almost too big for Isabella to fully grasp. But she nods seriously, accepting this promise the way children do when adults say things that sound too good to be true, but you desperately want to believe anyway. Dinner is loud and chaotic in the best way, Charlie begging shamelessly for scraps while Isabella tells Marie and Tom everything about her school and her teacher and her friends and the winter concert where she was a snowflake. Maya contributes occasional corrections or additions, but mostly she watches her daughter glow with happiness, watches her sister and brother-in-law receive Isabella's enthusiasm with genuine delight. Dante observes this family dinner with a strange sensation of being both participant and outsider, welcomed into intimacy he hasn't earned but appreciates more than he can articulate. He thinks about his own dinners with Lucia, usually silent affairs managed by staff while he scrolled through messages, his physical presence barely registering as actual participation in his daughter's evening. After dinner, Marie makes hot chocolate for everyone, and they migrate to the living room where the tree dominates with its warm glow. Isabella insists on hanging her special ornaments personally, each one placed with deliberate care while she explains its significance to Dante, who finds himself genuinely engaged with the narrative of her young life told through dated decorations. "This is the year I learned to read," she explains, holding up an ornament shaped like a book. "And this is from when we lived in the apartment with the mice that Mama said were tiny roommates who forgot to pay rent. And this one," her voice drops to a whisper, "this one Aunt Marie sent the Christmas after Daddy left, and it says, 'You are loved,' and Mama cried when we opened it, but the happy sad kind of crying." Each ornament is a data point in a story of hardship and love coexisting, of a child growing up with insufficient resources but sufficient care, learning resilience and kindness from a mother who modeled both despite overwhelming circumstances. The tree becomes not just decoration but documentation of Isabella's entire life, proof she existed and mattered, and was remembered even during the hardest years. By 8:30, Isabella is fighting sleep with visible determination, unwilling to miss a single moment of this perfect day but losing the battle against exhaustion. Maya scoops her up with practiced ease, carrying her daughter toward the bedroom that's now hers permanently. "Say goodnight to everyone, baby," Maya prompts gently. Isabella's sleepy voice manages goodnight to Marie and Tom and Charlie, then finds Dante across the room. "Good night, Mr. Dante. Thank you for making sure Santa found us after all. You're kind of like a Christmas angel, except you said you're not very good, but I think you're wrong about that. Good people do good things, and you did lots of good things today, so maybe you're better than you think you are." The assessment from a 6-year-old nearly undoes him completely. Dante manages to wish her good night, his voice not quite steady, and watches Maya carry Isabella away to tuck her into her forever bed in her forever room where she'll wake up on Christmas morning with actual security for probably the first time in her young life. Marie immediately turns to him once Maya is out of earshot, her expression shifting from gracious host to protective older sister. "Okay, cards on the table time. Who are you really, Dante Moretti? What kind of work requires encrypted phones and security details and the ability to charter private jets on impulse?" "The kind I'm trying to figure out how to leave," Dante answers honestly. "I've spent 15 years building something that makes me wealthy but costs me everything that actually matters. Today I met your niece at a moment when I just lost a multi-million-dollar deal because I chose helping her over confirming business transactions. And I realized that was the best choice I'd made in a decade. Are you dangerous?" Tom asks directly. "Do you put people in danger by proximity?" "Yes," Dante admits without hedging. "I am dangerous, and association with me can create risks. Which is why after tomorrow, I'll disappear from your lives completely. Maya has my contact information if she ever needs help with something, but I won't insert myself into your family permanently. Today was an anomaly, a moment of choosing differently, but it doesn't change what I am or what I do. What if we want you to stay in touch? Marie counters, surprising him. What if Isabella asks about you, wants updates on whether you're being a better dad to Lucia, wants to maintain connection with the person who made this Christmas possible? The offer of ongoing relationship, the suggestion that he could be part of Isabella's expanding family rather than a one-time intervention, is simultaneously appealing and terrifying. Maintaining contact means risk of exposure, potential danger if his enemies ever identify civilians he cares about. But it also means accountability, people who expect him to follow through on the commitment to change he made to himself and to Lucia. Then I'd have to figure out how to be worthy of that, Dante says slowly. I'd have to actually become the better person Isabella thinks I am instead of just performing goodness for one day. Maya returns from settling her daughter, catching the end of this conversation. She settles onto the couch next to her sister, accepting a fresh mug of hot chocolate and studying Dante with the same intense observation she'd shown throughout the day. Isabella asked if you'd come visit us in Boston sometime, Maya shares. She wants you to meet her new friends, show you her new school, prove that this Christmas wasn't just a dream she had in an airport terminal. I didn't know what to tell her. Tell her yes, Dante hears himself say, committing to yet another deviation from the carefully controlled life he's built. Tell her I'll come visit, maybe bring Lucia, so she can meet the girl who asked if her dad was lost too and accidentally helped him start finding his way back. You're serious, Marie says, studying his face. You're actually going to change your life because a 6-year-old was kind to you at an airport. I'm going to try, Dante corrects. I'm going to make different choices starting now and see if those choices accumulate into actually being different. I'm going to be present for my daughter instead of absent. I'm going to extract myself from the most destructive parts of my business. I'm going to keep showing up even when it's complicated, even when it costs me, because showing up turns out to matter more than any of the things I've been prioritizing. The conversation continues late into the evening, moving from his commitments to Maya's plans for her new life in Boston. Tom's friend has a job lined up for her doing administrative work at a stable company with actual benefits. Marie has already researched the elementary school's programs and thinks Isabella will thrive there. They're looking at community college options for Maya to finish her degree once they're settled. It's the kind of mundane planning that represents everything Maya has been fighting toward. The boring logistics of stable middle-class existence, where next month isn't a crisis to be survived but a timeline to be planned. Dante listens to their hopes and strategies with something approaching envy, recognizing that the life they're building with modest resources contains more genuine security than anything his millions have purchased. Eventually Tom and Marie excuse themselves, heading upstairs and leaving Dante and Maya alone in the living room with only the tree's lights and the dying fire providing illumination. The silence between them is comfortable now. The wariness that characterized their earlier interactions dissolved through the day's accumulated trust. Thank you, Maya says again, the words carrying different weight than earlier iterations. Not just for the jet, or helping us get here, but for staying. For meeting Marie and Tom. For being present for Isabella's happiness, instead of just facilitating it from distance. You gave us more than transportation. You gave us the feeling that someone cares whether we're okay, whether this works out. That's worth more than money. You're going to be okay, Dante says with certainty. You and Isabella are going to thrive here. Marie and Tom are good people who genuinely want you to succeed. You made the right choice accepting their help. I learned today that accepting help doesn't make me weak, Maya admits. I spent 6 years convinced that asking for support meant failing at being strong enough to handle everything alone. But watching you help us without making it feel like obligation or debt, that taught me something about how generosity is supposed to work. I learned something today, too, Dante shares. I learned that showing up completely, being fully present even when it's uncomfortable or complicated, creates meaning that accumulating wealth never did. I built an empire, but I was building it alone, and empires without connection are just expensive isolation. They sit in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the tree lights reflect off ornaments that tell Isabella's story. Eventually Maya stands, stretching with exhaustion that's finally catching up now that crisis has resolved into security. There's a guest room upstairs if you're staying tonight, she offers. Marie already prepared it just in case. Or Tom can drive you to a hotel if you prefer. I'll stay if it's not an imposition, Dante decides. I'd like to be here when Isabella wakes up tomorrow, see her face on actual Christmas morning in her actual forever home. She'd like that too, Maya says warmly. Good night, Dante. And thank you again. For everything. Good night, Maya. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Dante settles into the guest room. Small but comfortable, the kind of space that gets used for visiting relatives and occasional guests, and lies awake watching shadows move across the ceiling while processing the day's accumulated revelations. He's committed to changes he's not sure he can execute, promised his daughter he'll be different, inserted himself into a family's life without clear understanding of what that means going forward. But instead of the anxiety that normally accompanies deviation from established patterns, he feels something that might be peace. The kind of quiet contentment that comes from choosing right action over profitable action, from prioritizing human connection over strategic advantage, from being the person who shows up instead of the person who calculates cost-benefit ratios before offering help. He pulls out his phone and sends a message to Marco. Clear my schedule through New Year's. I'm taking the week with Lucia. Tell the family I'm unavailable for business. If anyone has problems with that, they can remember I've been available 24/7 for 15 years, and maybe 1 week off won't destroy everything. The response comes quickly. Boss, you're really doing this? You're really changing how you operate? I'm really trying, Dante types back. We'll see if trying turns into succeeding. But yes, I'm doing this. He sets the phone aside and closes his eyes, already planning what he'll say to Lucia tomorrow, how he'll explain that he's going to be different now, how he'll prove through consistent action rather than empty promises that this change is real and permanent. Through the walls comes the faint sound of Isabella's voice. She must have woken briefly and is talking to her mother. The words are indistinct, but the tone is pure happiness, the sound of a child who went to sleep in her forever home and woke up to confirm it wasn't a dream. That sound, that sleepy joy from a 6-year-old who believed in Christmas magic just enough to keep asking if Santa would remember her this year, makes every choice Dante made today feel not just worthwhile but essential. This is what redemption looks like, he realizes. Not grand gestures or dramatic transformation, but small choices accumulated over time. Staying with a lost child instead of confirming a deal, flying strangers to their family, promising your own daughter you'll show up, choosing connection over the comfortable isolation of wealth. Tomorrow is Christmas. He'll share breakfast with this temporary found family, watch Isabella open presents that her aunt and uncle selected with care, see Maya smile without the weight of crisis pulling at her features. Then he'll fly home to Chicago and begin the harder work of being present for Lucia, of restructuring his life around what actually matters instead of what pays best. It won't be easy. Change never is. But lying here in a guest room in a stranger's house after helping a 6-year-old get to Boston, Dante feels something he hasn't experienced in 15 years of accumulated wealth and power. He feels like maybe, eventually, with consistent effort and genuine commitment, he might become someone his daughter is proud of instead of someone she's learned to expect disappointment from. And that possibility, that maybe he can choose differently going forward even though he can't undo the past, feels like the best Christmas gift he's received in years.